Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today is our Raj Yoga class, and the timing has been shifted because winter is fast approaching. So, but I think it's a bit inconvenient for many people who are working. They prefer the 7 o'clock time. But then most of the people who attend the class from India, they find it too late. It's well past midnight when the class is over. So anyway, we will, there is this thing on YouTube Live. The talk will be recorded there. So maybe later on you can catch up. So we were discussing the very important aspect of Raj Yoga, that is kleshas. And we saw in our previous class how our karma is stored in our causal body. We have three types of bodies, each one more subtle than the other. We begin with the sthula sharira, or the gross body. We have the sukshma sharira, or the subtle body. And we have the causal body, which is known as karana sharira. That is one way of classifying the human personality. The other way of classifying a human being is the fivefold classification. This is a threefold classification based on three types of sharira. But we have a fivefold classification which starts with Annamaya Kosha, Annamaya Sharira, which is there in the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. The classification is made that in such a way that there are 5 layers of human personality, or layers, or you may say concentric sheets, which are in increasing, or you may say increasing order of its the subtlety. So Annamaya Kosha is the most gross. Then we have the Pranamaya Kosha, which is subtle than the Annamaya Kosha. Then we have the Manomaya Kosha, the third level, which is more subtle than even the Pranamaya Kosha. Then we have Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the intellectual, or the sheath where our buddhi resides. And finally, our buddhi resides, that is the pure sattvic aspect of our mind. So we may say that the Manomaya Kosha is manas, or the reactive mind, which is more instinctive, whereas the Vijnanamaya Kosha is made of that mind which is subtle, which is discriminative, which we call as Viveka. So it can discriminate, and that function is done by that aspect of the mind which is known as Buddhi. And then further up we have something known as Karana Sharira, or in this fivefold classification it is known as Anandamaya Kosha. So it is very difficult to compare the two. The threefold classification according to Sthula, which is known as Sthula, Sukshma and Karana, the gross, the subtle and the causal. And the fivefold classification, more or less, they follow the same principle. Now, the karmic seeds, the seeds of karma, which we call as Karmashaya in Patanjali's yoga. Now, this is according to Vedanta, the earlier classification. But when we try to compare it with the ideas of yoga, you see, each system has a different way of expressing the same truth. So sometimes there is confusion. So we need to define these terms properly. Otherwise, there is confusion. When you try to synthesize Vedanta, Yoga, Tantra, each system has a particular philosophy on which the whole technique is built. for example, yoga, for yoga, Sankhya, Patanjali's yoga, Sankhya is the philosophy. Whereas Vedanta is a philosophy which encompasses the entire range of different ideas. When you come to Advait Vedanta, you have a different philosophical framework. So, anyway, yoga uses the Sankhya idea that everything other than the Purusha is the only conscious principle, and the Prakriti or Shakti, which is the tantric way of expressing Prakriti. In Tantras, they call the same reality Shakti when it is manifest. When Brahman manifests as Shakti, Brahman and Shakti, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that they are the unmanifest and manifest form of the same reality. So when we come to Prakriti, according to Sankhya philosophy, Prakriti is made of three gunas, and depending on the nature of the gunas or the permutations and combinations of the gunas, we have different, you can say, samskaras or different karmic seeds. Samskaras means they are seeds which are latent impressions. Swamiji has used the word latent impressions. So they are impressions created as a result of our past karma of several lives maybe, but they refuse to go away. They are stored somewhere. So where are they stored? They are stored in that aspect of human personality which is known as the Karana Sharira. Karana means causal body. So what causes our karma? The karmic seeds which sprout. When they sprout, we act, we think. First we think, and thought gives rise to action in the gross, at the gross level. So the theory given by Patanjali is the water is compared. I mean, if there are seeds, these karmic seeds, when do they sprout? Two conditions are necessary. One is soil. For any seed to sprout, we need soil and we need water. So Patanjali has compared, I mean the commentators, of course Patanjali doesn't mention all these things in great detail. They just explain what is klesha, the different terms that occur in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Through such similes, we have to understand it. So the karmic seeds will give sprout if two things are there. The water of kleshas. Kleshas means the five kleshas which we have discussed so many times. The strong likes and dislikes, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, the clinging to life. Then we have avidya and asmita. Asmita is the ego. So five kleshas, they act like water. So when the seed is exposed to water, and of course the soil of buddhi is also there. The buddhi is that which gives us the identification with the individual body, the mind, and the whole psychophysical complex. That identification is because of buddhi. But because that is very subtle and the finest sattvic aspect of the mind, it binds less. Buddhi binds less. In fact, it helps you to remove all the bondage. Whereas the kleshas, the strong likes and dislikes that we have, strong likes are raga, strong likes for things that we enjoy or things that give us pleasure is known as raga. And a dislike for things that give us pain is known as dvesha. So there can be only two emotions in the human mind. Either you like it or you hate it. But there is a third emotion identified by Patanjali, which is not only raga, dvesha, but abhinivesha, the clinging to life, which is common to all animals. He says not only animals, but also the highest, the most wisest of people whose buddhi is developed. Even such people have this klesha, which is known as abhinivesha, this clinging to life. That doesn't go away so easily. That identification with the body, that identification that I am so and so, even if the body goes, this identification, asmita, doesn't go away because the subtle body still persists. So that identification that I am a subtle body, even if the gross body is taken away from the jiva, it still identifies itself. And that buddhi or that asmita is controlled by these karmashayas, these karmic seeds. So they are carried from birth to birth. These karmic seeds gives sprouts, and it is the sprouts are there only if they have both water and soil. So the soil is compared to the buddhi. So buddhi is the soil, that is the basis. Without our buddhi, without our ego, without the self-identification, our emotions don't have any relevance. Suppose somebody has no ego at all, then it doesn't, the waters of the kleshas, which are compared to water, no matter how much water you put, if there's no soil, perhaps the seed will not survive or it will not sprout. So when the soil becomes barren as a result of the waters of kleshas have been dried up or sucked up, or you may say by the heat of knowledge, that is the example they give. They say the only way you can prevent the seeds from sprouting is to burn these seeds. We see in nature, if the seeds are dry, they can somehow, even after thousands of years, they can sprout. But if they are totally burnt, so how do you burn? So when it dries, naturally, it is not enough. The Kriya Yoga, which produces jnana, that is what is known as avidya. It is one of the kleshas. Avidya can be burnt by vidya, that is true knowledge, knowledge of the ultimate truth, knowledge of the Purusha. In Patanjali, he doesn't say Brahman, he calls the same reality as Purusha. So this knowledge of Purusha is the only thing that can burn our past karma. So either you burn them if they are burnt, or you don't give them water. If you don't give the seeds water, you may prevent them from sprouting for some time. But the moment they get water, they will sprout. So Patanjali says that you have to convert the bija. Bija means the seeds of karmic karma, which give rise to all our thoughts and actions. You have to burn them, and it is a state known as dagda bija. Dagda means burnt. Bija means seeds. So if the seeds are burnt, then there is no possibility of the person being born again, because there are no samskaras. So we have to remember this truth, because this is fundamental. Why we should have raga, remove raga and dvesha. Why should we not have strong likes and dislikes? When we refer to the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sthita Prajna Lakshana is explained, that you have to be neutral, in the sense you have to be steadfast in your wisdom and not be disturbed by heat and cold, by the pair of opposites that we encounter in life. That is what Bhagavad Gita. So that Sthita Prajna Lakshana is nothing but controlling the raga and dvesha, not allowing the mind to take the shape of thoughts, especially emotional thoughts. When you encounter things that you like, you don't be excessively mirthful, or you don't just be excessively happy. So excessive happiness is as bad as excessive pain. So if you continuously get the things you like, there is a tendency that raga will attach you or cause attachment. But if you constantly hate things that you don't like, so these strong likes and dislikes makes a person dependent on Prakriti for his existence, for his happiness, for his sorrow, and then he is like you may say, he is not a master of himself. He is just an object. He is imprisoned by his strong likes and dislikes and fear. Fear is fear of death. So all fears are born out of this basic fear, which is the fear of death or clinging to life, abhinivesha. So we do not know, Patanjali says, since we do not know how this karmashaya, what our karmashaya is, where is it stored? Most of the people, even the most intelligent or the highly evolved yogi, cannot predict what his karma is. He cannot read unless one is totally illumined. In some cases, Sri Ramakrishna could understand, or Swami Vivekananda also says, they could see their past, but it's very, very rare thing. We are always, uncertainty always clutches us. We don't know, it's an unknown thing. This karmashaya, that is why it is considered to be so mysterious, because we do not know where it is, how it operates. If we knew, then we will not do the actions that we normally do. So on the other hand, kleshas are known to everybody, and they can be controlled or destroyed through yoga. We know when anger comes, or when any of these emotions come to us, we can at least perceive it, but we can't perceive the karmashaya. We do not know what is in store for us. So kleshas are known to everybody. We know what are the things that we like. We also know what are the things that we hate or don't like. So we can try to control them, or try to nullify them by using our vidya, that is our knowledge. So they can be controlled, and not only controlled but also destroyed. So that is why the only way we can control our karma, according to Patanjali, in the initial stages is through kleshas. If the kleshas have been reduced to the Dagda Bija state, that is, they don't sprout, then new karmashaya will not be deposited. So the first thing Patanjali says is, you have a baggage of karma in your karmashaya. Right now you forget that it will cause, it is so uncertain, we do not even know how to handle it. But it doesn't matter, at least don't allow further karma to be added to that karmashaya. Then it will be difficult to clean that karmashaya, to deal with that. So the karmashaya, which has already been deposited, you don't add further karma. That is the idea. That is the first step. So by handling these kleshas, by practicing Kriya Yoga, as they say, Kriya Yoga is nothing but Karma Yoga, with the detachment, performing all the karmas without being excessively attached, raga, excessively, don't have excessive hates towards something. So the strong likes and dislikes have to be done away with, and fear. So one should not do anything through, colored by any kind of fear. So fearlessness is one klesha. One way to destroy the klesha of fear. And likes and dislikes can be countered by the opposite thing. If you don't like a thing, convince your mind that it is known as pratipaksha bhavana. Create the opposite emotion and say, why does the mind react to certain people, certain things? No, you have to like it. So you have to force your mind. Swamiji once said, okay, it is very easy for a person to do the thing that he likes. But a truly wise person is he who likes the thing that he is supposed to do. Suppose if you choose those actions which you like, then there is no heroism in that. But if whatever falls to your whatever karma, according to Swadharma, whatever karma comes to you, and you start liking it, you don't have any not liking it, you start doing it without any strong like or dislike, then you will be destroying. Slowly you will be countering the effect of kleshas, and further karmashaya can be prevented. So the aim of Patanjali's yoga, according to this sutra, is not the destruction of karmashaya, but the destruction of klesha. Because this is a very complicated thing. Karmashaya is beyond our reach. Only the kleshas are within our reach. So all the yogic practices are aimed at the destruction of the kleshas. Having these 5 kleshas which result in bondage, which result in further karma, has to be prevented. And after destroying the kleshas, we can attain freedom from rebirth, known as mukti. So, uh, so what we discuss now is the course open to ordinary people according to yoga. Now, this is for not for advanced aspirants. They have to even deal with the karmashaya at a further stage. They have to deal with the karmashaya. But uh, according to Patanjali, that is a far-fetched hope to destroy what is there in the karmashaya. In fact, Swami Vivekananda in Thousand Island Park, he used this technique. Some disciples, some 12 selected disciples came, but the last two came were two women who were so much fascinated by his personality and message that they came in pouring rain, and suddenly they knocked the door, and Swamiji asked them, "Why have you come?" So they said, "We have come as if we have come to you as if we have come to Jesus Christ. If we were to be alive, how we would have come to uh, deliver us or give us salvation or mukti." Then Swamiji says, "I wish I had the power of Christ to release you or to give you mukti." But then he said something very significant. He said, "I have a strange power which I use with the permission of the aspirant, is to read the mind and find out what is there in the past." So he had that capacity. So, and then based on that, he would give advice. For Sri Krishna, it was natural. So he could see everything, the karmashaya also, the causal body, the causal samskaras, as clearly as we see things in a glass cupboard. So he could guide exactly, but Swamiji says, "I have to make some effort, meditate. So if you permit me," because without permission, he would not do that. Said, "If you permit me, then I will try to read your mind and try to gather the quality of samskaras that you have and guide you accordingly, if you permit me." And then, of course, they agreed. What he read, he tried to find out the hidden samskaras and what was the path for them to counter that and get freedom from rebirth, which is known as mukti. We do not know. But all the yogis, they have this capacity. Swamiji was adept in yoga, so he knew. But the only difference is Thakur could see it in a very natural way. Swami Vivekananda says, "I have to concentrate for some time, and if you permit me, I can read the mind and tell you the exact path for salvation and how to destroy your karmashaya, which is not known to ordinary people." So for a novice or for a beginner, the simpler path, the simpler yogic practice which has been prescribed is by removing the that is the first aim, to destroy the kleshas, which we can perceive, which we can see, which we can analyze, which we can deal with. But for higher realization, for attainment of freedom, by destroying the karmashayas, we have to, it is beyond the reach of ordinary people, according to yoga. But according to some theistic schools of Vedanta, that is how the yoga gives a lot of importance to self-effort. So when you think everything has to be done by self-effort, because he doesn't accept directly the concept of Ishvara or God's grace. That is what some people say, though he say Ishvara pranidhanadva in one of the sutras. By worshipping Ishvara, you can, but we are not very sure what he meant by Ishvara. But according to the theistic schools, Bhakti schools of Vedanta, God or Avatara has the capacity to modify or even destroy the karmashaya directly. But Patanjali, who has a very scientific approach, he says, suppose you don't believe in a God. You just, like a scientist, you are approaching the subject of yoga. Then you have to work it out. There is a method. If you follow that, you can work it out and you can destroy the karmashaya after a great deal of effort. But If we see Sri Ramakrishna's life, he could destroy the karma of Girish Chandra Ghosh of several lives just by his sweet will. And that we will find in other Semitic religions also, that God, through his mercy or through his grace, can destroy the karmasha. That is another way. It's not the yogic way, it's the bhakti way of dealing with this karmasha. So there are two ways of destroying the karmasha which are unknown. And that karmasha, as I said, it is the root cause of our jati, ayu and bhoga. It's just worth repeating because we have discussed this in great detail. What is jati, ayu and bhoga? What does this karmashaya do? Why should we worried about that? Because after death, after the death of the physical body, the karmashayas, the latent samskaras will decide three things according to Patanjali. It's a very scientific thing. It will first determine jati, the species into which you are born. Then ayu, the longevity, how long you will live, how long you will get in this particular birth to work out your karma. And the third is bhoga, the experiences of present life, the good experiences, the bad experiences. So, jati, ayu and bhoga, these three things, the species in which you are born, what kind of body you will get, whether you will get an animal body or a human body or a spiritual body or a body conducive to spiritual growth, and a mind and other things which are conducive to that jati is the result of your karma, the sum total of the karmas which is there in your karma share. That is the baggage of karma that we bring when we are born. We are not born with a clean slate. We are just living out our life, no matter where you are born. Of course, the jati will be determined by our karma, but once you are born, the ayu means the span of life that you will be, it is predetermined. Unless, of course, there is the compassion or grace of avatara which can nullify all these effects, can make changes. So, we have seen, we have discussed this fact that the kleshas are the root cause of the origin and fruition of karmashaya in the present life. But there are certain karmas which will be carried over to the next life. So that is different thing. But the prarabdha, there are three types of karma: prarabdha, sanchita, and agami karma. But we are now, Patanjali is more concerned about the prarabdha, that which has already started bearing fruits. So there is very little we can do to avoid it. It will work out in this life itself, in the present life. The karmashaya that is ready to give rise to its fruits in this life is known as prarabdha karma. So that is why whatever happens, in common Indian colloquial language, we say it is our prarabdha. If you ask somebody, instead of saying fatalism, we just use the word, oh, that is my prarabdha. What comments? It has already started giving fruit. So my karma, but the other karmas, the other two karmas, types of karmas, which have not started bearing fruits, they can be controlled and destroyed. How do you destroy it? Through the japa, through sadhana, through bhakti yoga, through karma yoga, through all the different types of yoga. You can, even before they become prarabdha, you can destroy them. That is the essence of spiritual life. And one of the most powerful ways to do it is japa, in which you combine the ideas of tantra, the bij mantra, then you have a little element of bhakti, plus you have the yogic practices. So when you synthesize all the three, you can handle this karmashaya or the latent karmas which are unknown to you. They are unknown to you because they are not become prarabdha. You don't know it's what the uncertainty is so much that people, all the anxieties and uncertainties that we feel is because of this karmashaya. They keep on uh, I mean, not bubbling up, but they keep on causing some kind of existential fear, existential worry that something is not right. We don't like to live in this uncertainty. Uncertainty can be very painful for many people. Maybe in the present, their prarabdha karma is working out fine. I mean, there's no problem as such. But you ask them, they'll say, no, there is some kind of deep anxiety, deep worry. I don't know what it is. Many times they ask this question. Then if we try to ask them, what is the reason? Is anything happening in this life, in the present situation, that is responsible for anxiety or worry? They'll say, no, it is just a kind of uncertainty or anxiety or worry that is causing some kind of depression. That is because of this karmashaya. We do not know what is the cause. The cause is hidden. So, unless these kleshas, I mean, the kleshas which are, of course, kleshas are visible, they are tangible to us, we can see them, we can perceive them, we can handle them, we can negate them. Unless these kleshas in the next birth also, suppose some of the kleshas we are not able to handle in this life. If we are able to handle it fully, then no new karmashaya will be deposited in our future births, or even in this birth, if this is the last birth. So we saw that karmashaya in the 13th sutra of Patanjali's of this chapter, he said that karmashaya fructifies into jati, ayu and bhoga in the next birth. So that will determine already our future birth is planned, unless we do something to rectify it. So if we leave everything to chance, or if we continue to live with uncertainty, then our jati, ayu and bhoga of the next birth also is predetermined. In that way, we can say everything is predetermined. But at the same time, Patanjali says you can change if you are concerned about this problem, then you'll do take solutions, or you'll try to work out some this problem and find solutions for preventing this further karma from getting accumulated. So we have to find out how these karmashaya are related to kleshas and also to the karmashaya of the next birth. I agree, this birth we have come with a baggage of karma. Are they going to remain the same, or are they going to, can we modify them? Definitely. How are these kleshas carried from birth to birth? That is also another question we have to ask, that suppose I get rid of certain karmas, but what about the residue? And how do the kleshas come back again, which cause further karma? Can we totally destroy them? So what is the link between this karmashaya and the klesha? So to understand this particular fact, Patanjali introduced another as very important word which is very loosely used in Vedanta. It is known as vasana. It will come there. There is bhoga vasana. I'll tell you what this vasana is. So in the last fourth chapter, this vasana is mentioned, but the commentators mention it in advance, so that this important term, it is as important as klesha. So what is the difference between vasana? Vasana word is used in Vedanta also. And you have to know that there is a fundamental difference between the term vasana, which is used in popular Vedantic literature, and Patanjali's yoga. There is a subtle difference. That's why we have to understand when we speak of certain, when we use certain terminology, it has different connotations in different philosophies. So these vasanas are roughly, I mean, English, it's so difficult to translate these Sanskrit words into English. Swamiji and other commentators, they're translating these vasanas as natural tendencies. So when you see a person has certain natural tendencies, you will say he has those vasanas. Say he has greed. So that is a natural tendency. He is naturally greedy. They are spontaneous impulses or you can call it, perhaps Sigmund Freud would call them drives. They're different drives. Uh, Something that motivates us to do certain things in certain ways. So, but Yoga Vasishtha gives a wonderful definition which we should understand. What does these vasanas do? These drives, what we are born with these drives, no doubt. These natural tendencies, spontaneous impulses. And sometimes intelligent human beings wonder, no matter how much we read, how much we study, these sudden impulses come up and we don't know from where they come. But Yoga Vasishtha is a wonderful scripture which is a wonderful combination of Vedanta and yoga. That's why it's known as Yoga Vasishtha. There is this conversation between Rama and his guru Vasishtha, and there's a lot of knowledge, lot of Vedanta, but at the same time, lot of yogic ideas. So it's a very important book. In fact, Yoga Vasishtha, Sri Ramakrishna used to keep this book, Ashtavakra Samhita, and some other books, and ask Naren to read it. Whenever Swami Vivekananda used to go to him, is to make him read a few pages. He used to keep many books, though he himself did not read. He made people who came to him read these books. So this Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana, actually it is a Ramayana, they call it conveys, Valmiki's Ramayana is just a story. I mean, it has deep philosophy behind that. But Yoga Vasishtha is a wonderful commentary on the Ramayana. So they call it Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana or Wo Yoga Vasishtha. It's a conversation between the Guru of Rama, that is Vasishtha, and his arguments. He is giving the principles of Vedanta and Yoga. That is the beauty of this book. So the Yoga Vasishtha defines this vasana. Obviously, Rama asks Vasishtha, what are these vasanas? Because if you use any word in Sanskrit, you have to explain what it is. So there are many verses to explain that particular word. Now, vasana has been so beautifully explained here. Patanjali says, Yoga Vasishtha Muni says to Rama, when owing to a very strong imagination, that is this kleshas, all consideration of past and future consequences are given up. You see how nicely he has defined this vasana. Because of our strong impulses or strong imagination. Sometimes we say our imagination, very often imagination has nothing to do with truth and reality. We don't see things as they are. But because of the strong imagination, we just forget the past and future consequences. The human mind knows smoking is bad. He knows the future consequences. But the desire or the imagination has been so strong in his mind that the moment he sees a cigarette, perhaps he wants to smoke one. He just, for the time being, he gives up his rational, he does not use his rational faculty. It is clouded, you can say. So without any consideration of past, he knows in the past, somebody has told him, and he has seen in the past that the effect of smoking, and he knows what will happen if I continue this. But still, Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana says, vasana is that which one experiences due to strong imagination, when all the past and future consequences of our action, whatever we do, are given up, and with that, an object is grasped. Any object. It can be a solid, liquid, or it can even be a thought. It need not be a material object only. Any object. So, any object we hold on to without taking into consideration the past and future consequences of holding on to that object. That impulsiveness is defined as vasanas. So this is how Patanjali defines these vasanas. And again, they are classified into two kinds. Everybody has two kinds of vasana. Those that are produced by jati, they are known as jati vasana. There's another jati means which are which particular species have. For example, if there is a dog, he has certain jati vasana by virtue of that his birth, the dog's birth as a dog. He has certain dog vasanas. Those are known as jati vasana. So if you are born as a parrot or some other bird, you have the jati vasanas which are uh, uh, exclusive. I mean, which exclusively deal with that species. That is known as jati vasana. Another is karma vasana, which are so jati vasana or karma vasana. They are all because of our actions of the past. So that is why they say the jati, the species in which we are born, is determined by our karma vasanas. And there is another type of vasana which is known as bhoga vasana. So bhoga vasana means that is that which is produced as a result of our experience. So we experience the joy of smoking a cigarette. Once you smoke, twice you smoke, 3 times when you smoke, it produces a bhoga vasana. But according to Patanjali, he does not call this bhoga vasana as vasana at all. He calls only jati vasanas or the karma vasanas which we have inherited. They are called as vasanas. Bhoga vasanas, according to him, come under the category of kleshas. So he explains the strong likes and dislikes that we. So bhoga vasana he doesn't consider as a vasana at all, which Vedanta does. So you have to remember this distinction. When Patanjali talks about jati vasana, when he talks about vasana, he means only jati vasana. Now, what is this jati vasana? We have to remember right from our birth, every living being spontaneously behaves in a particular way, which is peculiar to that species to which it belongs. For instance, we can see the frog is there. It has its own way of seeking food, eating, and protecting itself. It can live in water. It can live on land. So it is amphibious. Similarly, the bird has its own way. The other species have their own way, monkey and all. So also every human being has his own behavior, own way of behaving with the world outside, attitudes, tendencies. They are not acquired. They are not acquired in this birth. Otherwise, how will you explain a baby? Right from childhood, he will exhibit certain behaviors, attitudes, tendencies, because he's born with them. It is known as jati vasana. They arise from within the organism. These natural ways of behavior are called as jati vasana. You may say, if you take the Western psychology, in Western psychology, these jati vasanas are known as basic instincts. So, for lack of a proper word, we have to use this proper translation. We can use the word instincts. So these jati vasanas are nothing but instincts. Some of the instincts it depends on our species. So you can't expect a tiger to be mild and as calm as a cow, because his vasanas, his basic natural instincts is to kill other animals, whereas the cow cannot kill. So this has a wonderful word in Vedanta which is known as sahaja pravrutti. Sahaja pravrutti means basic instincts, the basic way we react to things around us. So all our jati vasanas. So in the light of modern knowledge, if we compare it with Western psychology, that these jati vasanas are determined by the genes in our chromosomes. I mean, it's our biological inheritance. So, but one thing has to be kept in mind, that we inherit only biology or certain biological instinctive characteristics from our biological parents. Otherwise, our karma, we are born, the kleshas that we exhibit in later life has nothing to do with our parents. But these jati vasanas are inherited as a result from our parents. That is why when a particular jiva selects the the male and the female where he is born, it has to correspond with the gene. So he is born with those genetic material, which will determine only the jati vasanas. This fact has to be understood. So you can't blame parents for everything. That if somebody becomes an evil person, not all the vasanas are, I mean, not all the kleshas are not determined by this. Kleshas we have inherited from our karmashaya of the past. It's only incidental that we were born to certain parents from whom we might inherit certain genetic characteristics. So that is an important thing. So there were two German zoologists who propounded a theory. I think they were Haeckel and von Baer, and they propounded a unique theory. You see, they come very close to these ideas of yoga, according to which they say they were used two words. It's a little difficult to understand. They call it ontogeny and phylogeny. The difference between the two is ontogeny is development of an individual. Phylogeny is the development of the ancestors. So there are two things. We inherit certain characteristics, not all. You may say 50% of our life is nurture. How we are nurtured, which school we go, our peers, the surroundings determine 50%. But something is inherited, that is nature. So the biologists, they say, if you analyze it logically, our life is 50%, not exactly 50%, but we can more or less say it is 50% nature, 50% nurture. How we are nurtured, that is important, but it's not all. Our very nature, that is nurture, is known as ontogeny, according to these zoologists. They say ontogeny is the development of the individual when he reacts to circumstances, the way he is trained, the way he is educated, the way his education takes place. That is, but phylogeny is nothing but he is just reproducing or developing what his ancestors have given him. That is why in India they give so much of importance. Though it looks like casteism, they say because somebody is born in a particular caste, will he always exhibit those same characteristics of that caste? No, it is not, because it's only 50% of the things he inherited. So somebody, that is the argument in Gita, he said it is because of guna and karma, both. Guna is nature, karma is our actions, that our caste is determined. So the son of a Brahmin, which is supposed to be a higher caste in India, doesn't have to be a Brahmin, because he may be born with 50% of the characteristics of a Brahmin, but his nurture or maybe his old samskaras which he exhibits may make him not fit to be called a Brahmin. So Gita, it is very clear. Sri Krishna says, caste is not something you are born into. You are what you are is a combination of nature and nurture. Here it is ontogeny and phylogeny. So we have within us, every human being is struggling. First is the development of the ancestors, which he is exhibiting to some extent, and then the development of the individual. What this theory means in practical life is that every animal or every human being in its embryonic state passes through several stages, which represent the stages of evolution of its ancestors. So the human embryo also passes through the stages of fish, frog, reptile, mammal. Finally, it becomes a mammal. If you see the growth of the embryo, this idea is seen in the concept of the different avatars. Some people laugh that how can you have a fish as an avatar, a tortoise as an avatar. There are so many kurma avatara and the different avatars finally leading to the human avatar. There is this animal, mammal, that is lion, which is half man, Narsimha Avatara. So the idea is that this is the phylogeny which these von Baer and German zoologists speak of. There are certain things which we pass through, all the different stages of evolution in before the child is born. But this refers only to the physical body. It's not that he inherits the characteristics of a fish or a frog or a reptile or a mammal, finally leading to birth as a mammal. Otherwise, we would exhibit all those characteristics. But this just refers to the development of the physical body. But according to, I mean, in the Western side, this thing, they are just concerned about the development of the physical body. So they have explained how these things are happening, how evolution takes place. But according to yoga, is it possible to have this similar evolution? Does it follow the same law which the genetic, the biological birth, the evolution which we see in zoology, is that same stage replicated in the human mind when the human mind is developed? So there are strong evidences. Swamiji has given, Swamiji's brother, in fact, was he did a lot of study in anthropology. In fact, I don't know whether it was Swamiji. He came to England, and some of the Western disciples, he also studied some kind of electrical engineering, but he was very much interested. The younger brother, sorry, not the elder brother, the older one, the younger one, Bhupendranath Datta, was an anthropologist. He has written several books on anthropology. So Swamiji used to discuss these ideas. He discussed about Darwin's evolution theory. That Swamiji says, if we believe in these biologists, every man relives the racial history of mankind, right from birth, right from the embryonic state till he is born. So if this view is somehow linked to the idea of rebirth, because biologists will not believe in rebirth. They'll say, oh, no, he has inherited it from the ancestors. That's the extent to which they will go. Beyond that, they will not accept. But if we go at if we deal at this problem at a subtle level, then we can link it to the Indian theory or the Vedantic theory of rebirth, Punarjanma. We will arrive at the conclusion that human soul has also evolved, just as the body has evolved from the amoeba to a mammal. That is what Darwin says. The evolution is there. Darwin's theory of evolution and all these zoologists, they firmly believe that our ancestors, they were, we can consider amoeba or any primitive organism which has evolved to become man. That is a firmly established fact. So also, using that same logic, the Indian Vedantists say that human being has evolved through a series of births. He was not very spiritual. That is why Swami Vivekananda said, Sri Ramakrishna lived in his one life all the lives of all the saints and the sages of thousands of years of Indian spiritual life. He lived in one life. You see the speed with which he did all his sadhana. There was nothing he left, whether it is tantras, the 64 tantras, the Vaishnava sadhana. So, depending on the capacity, an avatara can of course do it. He can live all this evolution takes place in one life. We may need several lives to evolve. We evolve up to a certain level in this life. Next life we start with that. As Bhagavad Gita says, nothing is lost. Arjuna was very keen to know. Suppose I die when I am doing spiritual practices. So he says, don't have to worry. You will continue from where you have left. That is the only thing that follows us beyond the grave. All other material things are left behind, but What follows us behind the grave is this karmashaya. That is what Patanjali is telling, that they evolve. This theory of evolution, Swamiji very clearly said, can be taken to a higher level. At the biological level, Darwin's theory is fine. But what about the mental evolution? In each birth, the soul has to evolve. How does it do? By adapting to a variety of situations and experiences, countless number of times. So repeated pain or repeated pleasure teaches us lesson. In fact, Swamiji says, pain taught me more than pleasure. Because pleasure can misguide you. You will think the one can, just as it is there in the novels and others, and they lived in children's novels, of course, not in children's novel, they said, and they lived happily ever after, which is never possible. I mean, how can you have no misery in your life? Because children, we cannot tell the unpleasant things of life to these children. We try to sugarcoat it by saying that then they lived happily ever after. But this adaptation to the variety of situations and experiences over and over again, the soul evolves. That is why Swamiji says, I am thankful to my pleasure, the pleasure that I got, the wonderful, nice experiences that I had. I'm thankful, but I'm more thankful to my painful experiences, because he says, pain has taught me more than pleasure. It's there in Karma Yoga. So this adaptation, trying to adapt to this variety of situations and experiences again and again, helps the jiva to evolve, helps the yogi to evolve. That is one of the fundamental ideas. Just as the body evolves, and it is explained by Darwinism, the evolution, and all the other zoologists, but that is half explanation for the theory of evolution. Swamiji says evolution is incomplete unless you consider spiritual evolution at the same time. I mean, you can't just have evolution in the body and no evolution in the mind. It may not be simultaneous, but definitely physical evolution goes up to a certain stage. After that, it stops. Or maybe over a period of time, you have better and better, healthier and healthier human beings. It may be possible, because you saw how human beings used to suffer in the past. Our ancestors had died very quickly. Now the lifespan has increased. So biologically, we are all, hopefully, unless we destroy ourselves by wrong thinking, we are hopefully evolving as the advances in science and technology, especially biological sciences, medical sciences, we evolve physically. But Swamiji says that evolution is incomplete. So there is this spiritual evolution, mental evolution, where our adaptive, the capacity to adapt, as it increases, they get recorded in the psychophysical plane, which are known as, in the prana, which is known as samskaras. That is another word we have to remember. What are the samskaras? They are these records. The evolution, the evolutionary records, just as we have chromosomes, the DNA and chromosomes, which is our physical record, you may say. So we inherit from our parents, from our ancestors, maybe the same genetic. That's why they have this genetic lineage, which whether you are a Caucasian or whether you are African, or how much of African genes you have inherited. Nowadays, biology has done a lot of research. You just have to give some sample of your body, and then they will determine how much of the ancestors you have inherited. Whether you were white, how much of the white inheritance you have got, how much of the black. So you'll be surprised to know the advanced science has advanced so much. But at the psychophysical plane, they are known as samskaras. They are not known as DNA or chromosomes and other things. These samskaras, they appear as these jati vasanas. In fact, if you refer to Patanjali, he just says vasanas. When he says vasana, he means jati vasana. He does not mean bhoga vasana. Vedanta distinguishes between these two vasanas. Bhoga vasanas are called as kleshas by Patanjali. So this is the important point to note, that Patanjali has always used the term vasana only in the sense of jati vasana. In the light of modern biological knowledge, we may say that the vasanas, jati vasanas, are characteristics. If you want a biological translation of what jati vasana, they are characteristics of the individual species which are produced by genes in the chromosomes. Now, then what is this bhoga vasana? So I think we have a few minutes. We'll just start. It's a very long topic. This is as far as jati vasana, the physical inheritance about which the medical scientists and the biological and zoological scientists speak of. So everything is not determined by genes. We have to understand that. That is why this bhoga vasana is important to understand. So genetically, you don't inherit your tendencies, your instincts. That's why do evil people, why do children become evil though their parents are very noble, or vice versa? People, Hiranyakashipu, if you see, he was a very evil person, but his son Prahlada was such a great devotee. So he may inherit the genetic material from his parents. So he'll be born in a particular species because of that. But bhoga vasana will determine what kind of experience or what type of life he will lead. So we have to understand this as against the idea of jati vasana. We have to understand what bhoga vasana is. So we have to understand this in the light of two very important psychological facts. If we try to translate this word or try to understand this, what bhoga vasana means in the light of modern psychology, we have to remember that there are two we have to understand certain psychological facts which are a matter of our daily experience, nothing new. All the psychology Western psychology that we are trying to understand is on the basis of experiments and on the basis of observation. It's a very, very objective science. So, what are the two psychological facts? The first psychological fact is to distinguish between two kinds of experiences. Everybody experiences many things in life. So, one is the experience and the other is expression or response. So one is a stimulus. We experience certain things in a particular way. So this psychological fact you have to understand. I may see a ghost, or another person may see some dark figure. One person will think that he'll be afraid. He will react in a different way. His response will be different. Another person will take it very casually. He may not be afraid at all. So there is a difference between experience. Both of us may experience the same thing, but our responses will be separate. So one is the stimulus, another is the response. So that is very well known in modern psychology. So the experience is of two types, cognitive and affective. Affective means emotional. So you see something, for example, you see a rope. In the dark, two people are going and one is full of fear. He is afraid of snakes. So he says a rope, and suddenly the other fellow shouts, there is a snake, there is a snake. Then the light is brought and they see it's not a snake, it was just a rope that had the shape of a snake. So the cognitive experience was same or similar, not same. If it was same, maybe there was some fault in his eye, we can say that. So the cognitive experience of one person may have tallied with the cognitive experience. Both were seeing the same object, but the way they reacted, the affective experience was different. So the cognitive experience is known as jnana in Vedanta, or it is known as vidya. When you talk of vidya, it means a genuine cognitive experience. If the cognitive experience is faulty, we call it avidya. We are superimposing the snake on the rope. It is just a rope. True knowledge, if the light of knowledge was there, if you had full illumination, you would see it only as a rope. But wrong knowledge, ajnana or avidya, is trying to think of that, trying to perceive that rope as a snake. And that is because of the expression, the response, which is because of the kleshas. We are full of fear. We are always thinking of snakes. So the moment you see a rope, anything that you see which resembles a snake, you perceive them because of the influence of your kleshas. So the jnana or vidya, they are just perceptions. All forms of abstract knowledge, ideas, concepts, they are all come under the category of jnana or vidya. So when you have certain concepts in your mind, but our tantras from which our mantra shastra has come, this is another aspect. The mantra shastra, the power of mantra which we want to unleash. Many of us have been given mantras by our respective gurus. How does it work? What does a mantra do to us? How does a simple name change our destiny? To understand that, we have to understand that whatever we see or perceive, jnana, the jnana which, the vidya that we are aspiring to reach or have or get, or maybe to get that knowledge, we perceive certain things and interpret them. All the abstract thoughts, ideas, concepts, they are nothing but, according to Vedanta and also according to yoga, nama and rupa. Nama means name. Rupa means form. Maybe the name changes. If you are speaking in Spanish, you will say, have a different name for table. But that particular name in Spanish has corresponding, it corresponds to only one rupa or one form only. So whether you call an object a cat in English or something else in French or German or any other language, the nama rupa is there intimately connected. That is the secret behind our mantra japa and sadhana. It's a very, very elaborate science. They have taken it to such a level that Holy Mother said, japat siddhi. Some people say, what is there repeating a certain name given by the Guru? Just go on repeating. How will it lead to siddhi? How will it lead to knowledge? We should read books, we should have jnana. Many people think it is too simplistic. Having taken the mantra from a Guru, they think it is very simplistic. But the science behind that is based on certain fundamental experiences, the cognitive experiences and the response to them. This is Yoga Sutra normally deals with this cognitive experience. So that is why they say cognitive experience normally is followed by a vritti in the mind. So you see a table, either you associate certain abstract ideas with that. Oh, this is a table. It is used for eating or it is used for writing. So all the abstract ideas come later. First the nama comes. Even if the object is not there, if you just say table, immediately the association of the form of the table comes, and you know this table is used for writing or dining as your need may be. So this cognitive experience produces what is known as vritti. So yoga says, if you deal with this cognitive experience, which is characterized by nama and rupa, everything, including the ishta and the mantra, that is where the mantra shastra comes. They use this cognitive experience to go beyond cognition and reach that pure consciousness, that Brahman. So Yoga Sutra deals with the first aspect of experience, the cognitive experience, not the effective experience. Effective means emotional experience. That's why they don't give much importance That's why they say if a person is unnecessarily emotional, he is not fit for spirituality. Of course, Bhakti Shastra will say something else. They'll say, no, you can use that emotions to develop that love for God, which is true. When you purify those emotions, they become cognition, they become an intimate attachment to the Lord. So when you come to Mantra Shastra, it deals with this first experience, the only experience which Patanjali, they assume that by sadhana you have got rid of kleshas. You're not an emotional being. So people who normally follow the path of yoga, they may appear to be a bit dry, but they have definitely got their emotions under control. That is why Swamiji never liked too much emotion, excessive emotion. Maybe in bhakti it is useful. The effective experience known as bhoga or experience, that comes under the category of bhoga or klesha, which gives rise to sukha and dukkha. That's why you find even in Buddhism, which is, many people say it is very similar to yoga, Patanjali's yoga. They don't think that kleshas or emotional experiences should be, only the bhakti school develops the emotions. They assume that you have controlled your emotions. There is no strong likes or dislikes, no idea of sukha and dukkha. So you have an equanimity of mind and you can easily meditate. But it is a far-fetched dream. It's not so easy to get rid of emotions. Patanjali assumes that a person has done enough Kriya Yoga, enough Japa, enough Mantra to take care of his emotional life. And when he comes to the cognitive life, he takes it seriously. Then the second sutra comes into picture, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Then it becomes easy for a person, if he has his emotions under control, to control the Chitta Vrittis, the cognitive Vrittis. So effective experience, or you may say emotional experience, in Patanjali is known as bhoga. So it is experience of sukha and dukkha. This, according to Patanjali, leads to bondage. That is why the first half of sadhana pada, which we discussed, they say if you leave out emotion from your experiences, then the samskaras are not formed. They are compared to water. No matter how many seeds you put in the soil, if you don't add water to that, it's only when you add water they start sprouting. So they say don't be emotional, emotional in the negative sense, in the worldly sense. So excessive emotions are discouraged by Patanjali. They are known as bhoga vasanas. He doesn't consider them as vasanas at all. He is just bothered about jati vasanas, or maybe the vasanas which are cognitive. So he says the whole world, unless you see something, you will not become emotional. He is more practical. He said if you see a rope, you deal with that cognition. The fear comes later when there is nama and rupa. Then only the other vasanas come. They are byproducts of our cognition. So he is more focused on how to reduce the vrittis, how to deal with these vrittis which are bubbling again and again because of this samskaras, or because of these emotions, or because of this bhoga vasana. So the sublime impressions of bhoga, they remain as vasana. And that is why every unconscious experience of living in a body, just like a driver's experience of his car, he is not one with the car. He uses the car for his purpose. So these unconscious experiences which we feel, which impact our life, definitely the nature of the car or the structure of the car will impact the driver, but they are not part of the driver. Similarly, the cognitive experiences are main according to Patanjali, but these emotional experiences or bhoga vasanas are what will decide how we will travel, or how much karma we will incur, how much suffering will be there, our jati, our ayu, our lifespan, our bhoga, everything will be determined by these vasanas. So this is the subtle difference. So you have to understand that bhoga vasana, jati vasana, and there is one more theory which says ayur vasana. Ayur vasana means the longevity. That also depends on our samskaras. So, but we need not make that distinction. We can combine the jati uh, and ayu together, because the moment suppose you are born as a dog, then your lifespan is more or less fixed. If you are born as an elephant or a tortoise, maybe you will have more than 200 years to live. So also human beings has an average lifespan. So this jati and ayu are intimately connected. The species will determine your length of life. A dog will not live more than 14 to 16 years. It may die early, but that is fixed depending on its species. So these samskaras, they impact and they create a huge impact on our life. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it is 7 o'clock, 6:45, I ought to have stopped. Anyway, I'll conclude. There is only one question which I will try to answer. I didn't realize today I started at 5:45. It is almost 7 now, 7, 8, 6:45. I should have stopped. Anyway, if a soul is born as a great king or queen, does that mean that they have a lot of good karma? No, 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 no. It is not a relevant question here. But how can a king, the very fact that one is born as a king doesn't mean he has good samskara. He can be a very evil person. He can be a brutal king. So it's not logical. No species. It's not that the species into which you are born that uh, alone determines your future. What are the karma which you have come? The karmashaya has a huge impact. You may be born in the richest family, but you may have a very short life, or you may be born in a noble family. So the species, you may be a lion. There may be good lions, there may be evil lions. So also there may be good kings, bad kings. That has nothing to do with uh, our past karma. That because of good karma he was born as a king. Not at all. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.